So it might be obvious by now that I don't really write about Shakespeare, which leads me to my next poem. I have never understood Shakespeare, which made writing this commission about Shakespeare really hard. I once told someone he was my favourite poet, because they asked. And because my mind is a graveyard, always resurrecting the past, I sit backwards on trains to look at where I've been and contemplate the significance. The truth is, his words go right over my head. And I feel small when I can't find meaning. He makes my brain stutter, the same line keeps repeating, and hesitating in your mind is not comfortable when it's an open wound still weeping, and hesitating in your mind is not comfortable when it's an open wound still healing, and I can't read someone else's story without my own story intervening. I understand a fury in your words, but not the words. Othello, Act 4, Scene 2. We're all multilingual, we can scream and cry in every language because emotion translates the truth. He writes words in the wrong order, yes, but when has anything ever made sense? Like why it took me until the age of 25 to learn that sex isn't just for men. Questions of whether he wrote his work, dissociation is my defence. Emotions split so far apart they created 4 new segments, a personality iridescent, 5 backward trains of thought travelling through one head. And are our words ever our own when so much has already been said? Starts with something mundane. Pulls you in until you're surrounded by the inner workings of my brain, his brain, my brain, no method, only madness, ink bleeds torrential pain. I wonder if he slept. Have you ever tried to sleep inside a poet's brain? Getting into bed with trauma, disturbed by lines to be retained, be well, or be a poet? The question remains, the storytellers of our day. Telling tragedies. Making sure it hits as close to the tragedy itself. Hearts on sleeves, oblivion into thin air melts. We jump down your throat to encourage your voice to speak out. Use metaphors to condense your thoughts down into a nutshell. We share for you, but we write for ourselves, because if we bite our tongues, the bitterness seeps out. And I wonder how he felt when he wrote someone's life into a line. Whether he felt like he contained the universe in his head all of the time, if he felt the lows from the highs of creativity coursing through his fault lines. Have you ever tried to live inside an artist's mind? We're brought up with fairy tales, leaving our lives to be defined by false expectations of reality. The reality is, things don't snap back after being displaced. Movements that cause fractures cause earthquakes, lives unhinged by seismic waves, and his slap on the wrist was a slap in the face. Let grief convert to anger. Blunt not the heart, engage it. Macbeth, Act 4, Scene 3. This world is survival of the most tolerant, and I never expected to have to grieve for my virginity, yet my heart will love until it runs out of beats. The web of our life is of a mingled yarn, good and ill together. All's well that ends well, Act 4, Scene 3. The conflict of something that should be pleasurable, causing so much pain, mind and body in disharmony, he won't forget it. But I will always remember it. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, there is a difference. You see, I don't need evil to greet him, I just wish it would stop fucking with me. Rape is not a traumatic event. It is a series of traumatic events from that moment on. If it's uncomfortable to hear it, imagine going through it and being told you were in the wrong and what's done is done. Have you ever sat with an ice pack on your heart because it won't stop burning? Life is full of lessons. Why isn't he the one learning? And I'm sorry if I struggled to catch my breath, but he took it away with him and left me for death. If he never returns, how will I get it back in my chest? And when your go-to person hurts you, then who do you go to next? Don't mistake my emotion for weakness. Sometimes I don't know whether to string up bunting or a tiny violin, but the poetry is my justice. In a world I am forced to share with him, I won't give it no credit, but I will give it no power. Write it out loud, let him become the coward. I may not have learned what love is, but I sure as hell know what it isn't. It isn't control through manipulation, being forced or imprisoned. The only reason I still believe in love is because of the way I am learning to love me. If I'd have read Shakespeare sooner, I would have known that love is tragedy. He caused a landslide with his disregard of boundaries, crashing down with the gravity of his activity, and I've spent my life saying sorry to those who caught the aftershocks, making sure they don't hit the rocks. I'm not good enough. And someone else got to decide that I never would be, and this was supposed to be about Shakespeare, but I made it about me. He taught us to speak about tragedy. The biggest tragedy being that we don't understand each other, and that we don't try. Not to be dramatic, but misunderstanding makes people die. Maybe we were both just trying to rewrite the times, find reason through our rhymes. I thought it was Shakespeare's fault I turned a blind eye, but the responsibility was mine. See, we only listen when it applies, but we have to open up our minds and discuss to save lives. We can't assume things don't concern us, and different doesn't mean dangerous, and our cells renew every 7 to 10 years, and my skin has never felt his touch. We don't know it all, because rooms carry on when we leave them, and when the shit hits the fan, so do everyone's true colours. So, where are you on the spectrum? Thank you.
You know what you do? Yeah? I don't. This side, 1, 2, 4.
Shake!
Yeah!
Mouth!
Again.
Shake!
Yeah! We're gonna get quick.
Mouth! Shake! Mouth! Shake! Mouth! Shake! Mouth! Shake! Shake! Mouth! Shake! Mouth! Shake! Mouth!
No, we can't. Yo, that was supposed to be the intro, but one last time for Curly.